exploring the topic of inclusivity. So I'm by no means an expert in the field. But because of my, maybe I should tell you a little bit about my background. I joined the university in 2007 as a teaching assistant, and I progressed through various levels, including the levels of associate lecturer, lecturer, senior lecturer, and at some point in time, I was a deputy dean on learning. And throughout my experience, I always try to do my best to support students. And in 2016, I moved to the position of the Director of Student Support Services. And in this position, I tried to restructure the university services to assist students better, to enhance their learning experience. And one of the areas that really came challenging was the support of students with disabilities. There was no service available in the university. It hasn't been fully launched just yet still, because when drafting the very policy of helping students with disabilities, I really felt the lack of competence in the area. And that's not like I, went ahead and, just went by, played by ear or anything, but I tried to develop in the area. I took a lot of online courses from various universities from across the globe. And one of the most recent courses I took was this online, around 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks course from Harvard Graduate School of Education, their professional education division. And the title of the course was Ensuring Success for All, Tools and Practices for Inclusive Schools. And this learning experience of mine was sponsored by the American Council. So a big thank you for assisting me in going through this course and organizing this event, because it's very important that we put strong effort towards promoting inclusivity in Uzbekistan. So today I would like to reflect a little bit from the key takeaways I have gained from this online course. What I will be talking about mostly and largely, this online course was focused on the universal design for learning. This is slightly more recent compared to a bit earlier steps towards inclusivity, such as accommodations or reasonable accommodations or reasonable adjustments, which you might have heard about. The universal design for learning has been described by the Martha, I'm sorry for the typo there, Martha Mino, the Harvard Law School Dean, who said that the universal design for learning is one of the few biggest and truly transformative ideas to emerge in education in the past couple of decades. So I got inspired by this idea because the idea, to be honest, absolutely honest with you, the idea of reasonable adjustments and a lot of investment into assistive technology from zero came a little bit challenging. And this universal design for learning, I think, is a savior. Let me tell you about this in this session. In this session, I will speak about it, and I think it really opens the door for Uzbekistan in particular. So I will talk about what UDL is, and also talk about how UDL can really improve access to curriculum for all learners, because this is the critical thing about UDL, that it doesn't focus solely on students or people with certain special needs, people with disabilities, but rather it focuses on absolutely all learners, on everyone. So before I progress to the definition, or so to speak, of UDL, to the actual UDL, the universal design for learning, I would like to give you a little bit of a background on the before, okay, part of it. So there have been different approaches to dealing with students with disabilities, and the model that has really prevailed, it might be prevailing yet still, and you might be holding the same view. So let me really ask you there. The medical approach to treating disability was looking at it as if something that the inability of the people with disabilities, let me kind of take it slow there. The inability of the people with disabilities to engage in everything, that all the sorts of activities that we normally engage in is rooted in their body. It's their personal thing. So something is broken or defective about the individual's body that kind of restricts, that serves as the barrier for the person to fully engage and live a full life, right? Do we have a chance, Dilnoza, to kind of allow people to raise their hand if they kind of hold the same view that there is nothing wrong with this sort of view, because that's how we have been looking through it at this. We have seen people unable to kind of participate fully.
Yeah, sure.
And this may be, we see that as the reason being something that hasn't quite developed in their body. That's a personal issue. Anybody who thinks that is indeed the case, could they raise their hand? That would be very interesting to find out.
Yeah, sure. And if anyone wants to get interacted in this, let's say, the topic along the way, and they're welcome to raise their hand. But the thing is, like, I read in the chat, we have like irrelative comments. So if your question and concern is relative to the topic we are talking about right now, and if you're raising your hand, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask a question from Gulnaz, and that's totally fine. So anyone wants to comment on Gulnaz's referral to the...
I see that nobody, basically, yes. So far, nobody raised their hand. So I assume people, that might be, you know, the tendency to refrain from interaction. That's also fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's natural.
The view itself, this model, this medical model of viewing disability is in itself is not bad, because the effort was still to kind of still help the person to kind of treat the medical condition, kind of address what the problem is, right? But the problem with this model was that segregation, was the isolation, was the person was isolated as if they didn't exist as part of the society, right? More recently, maybe in the last 40 years or so, in the 1980s maybe, a different view on disability emerged, which took social, it was called the social model of disability. And this model, it suggested that maybe the problem is the inability of the person with a certain impairment or health condition to participate to engage fully in the society is not really due to the bodily problem, but it's not something about that one person, but something surrounding that person. So it's about the environment around that person. So the environment, and I want you to stop and think about it for a second. Everything that surrounds us, nearly everything that human beings have created, right? They have been created for the majority, for the normal majority, right? And the concept of majority is very important, because this has created this has created a number of barriers. The barriers which may not be necessarily so difficult to address, but so things have been designed, right? And that's where the concept of inclusivity really steps in. The concept of universal design emerged, and which the very concept of universal design did not have its roots in education at all. The universal design sourced from the environment. So just like said, if the problem is in the environment, so the thing that emerged was, why not adjust the environment so that it fits everybody's needs? So maybe the environment can be modified, changed, so that everybody can have equal access. So to give you a little bit of a clear idea, I want you to explore for a bit the following pictures. Yeah, there we go. So take a look at this picture here. This is a sloped walkway in Peninsula Park in Park Rose Garden in Courtland. And as you can actually see in the picture, it's there is no staircase. There is no staircase, and everybody, including a girl on a bike, can make her way up, right? So this is just one of the examples. Like I said, the transformations, the universal design had its roots in the things that surrounded people. And in this particular case, they started in architecture, okay? This is another example, right? So this very small transformation of evening out kind of the slope there can really change a lot for a lot of the people in the society, right? Or these sliding doors. And the thing here I would like to stress is a lot of these transformations, think about all of these transformations. My observation is we have in the university, we have this, what is it called? The walkway, the sloping walkway, and it is preferred to the stairs. It is preferred to the stairs by all the students. And you see that, you know, the same way with the sliding doors, it's very convenient to use, right? So for the majority of people, you don't go to the effort of opening the doors, right? The other the other thing that may seem absolutely insignificant to us, but they make a tremendous difference to a lot of the people with special needs, is this door step. What do we call it? Door step, right there, door threshold, or whatever it is called, right? So some barrier right there in the doorway, right? So these sliding doors really address that problem. So it becomes accessible for everyone, for all people, right? The other thing which I noticed when I went outside of Uzbekistan was the intercom in the elevator, right? This voice that said, doors opening, doors closing, or floor 1, floor 2. Did it ever occur to you? Did it ever occur to you that that sound that actually spelled out what was happening was assisting a lot of people? People with special needs, people with low vision, right? They may be also very convenient for everybody else, which is a good thing, right? It serves everybody's purpose, not just a specific. So there is this distinction. You see on these, the buttons, on the buttons, you can see first of all, the numbers are printed in large for the low vision people, but also there is the same numbers written out in Braille, right, for the blind. But also in addition to that, there is the intercom that spells out, that addresses the need, you know, for navigation purposes, right? And it also, it doesn't bother anybody else. It actually helps all the rest of the population, right? So this concept of universal design, it's sourced from this sort of things. So let me progress. So the universal design for learning emerged from this concept of universal design. Actually the developers, they thought, why, the theory was, why can't the same approach be taken in education, right? The conditions largely, in terms of developing the universal design for learning, the biggest credits go to the CAST team. C-A-S-T, the CAST team is, it started with the development, with the team that thought that the CAST stood for computer aided software testing. So they were actually working with computer technology. And they thought, can computers be used for education? Does it open a lot of the doors for students with special needs, maybe? And indeed, today nobody knows what the CAST stands for, but the CAST team itself is very known for the progress they made in universal design for learning. The key objectives of UDL set in terms of learning, they are not much different from what is known in universal design as such, right? So what is our goal? The clear thing, the important thing is is to establish what really is our goal, right? What do we want students to learn, right? Not learning for the sake of learning, but learning for the sake of preparing them for life, right? And this seems like a very basic thing, but it's largely overlooked, because very often when we teach students in school, we teach them the content which may become to a certain degree irrelevant given the settings. It will get a little bit clearer as we go through it. So it's important to establish, what do we really want all the children to learn? What will prepare them for life, right? And then, all the same as with universal design, the concept is to anticipate the barriers and to act proactively to minimize those barriers, and preferably, of course, to remove those barriers. So a small, I think, so the principles again, like to reiterate, the barriers, the UDL suggests that the barriers exist in the environment, not in the person, right? The barrier is not the deficiency in the person, in the learner. The learner variability is okay. There are certain things in the environment that inhibit effective learning. And variability of learners is a norm. And this actually can be proactively accommodated for. This can be designed for. And universal design provides specific guidelines as to how this can be designed for. This is a very famous picture, but it's a very good picture to illustrate the fact that the barriers are in the environment, not in the learners. This picture focused primarily on equality versus equity, right? So it's good in a sense of differentiated learning in terms of illustrating reasonable adjustments. If anybody is familiar with the topic of inclusivity, students with special needs are often offered these days in more advanced kind of practice. They are offered adjustments and accommodations. And this picture advocates for the learners to be offered adjustments depending or proportionately, not everybody equally, but equitably depending on their needs, right? Now, UDL takes it a step further. I want you to kind of take this in. What UDL is trying to do is not offer necessarily the reasonable adjustment. The reasonable adjustments and accommodations may be offered if there is a need. However, the primary focus is on removing the barrier to learning. All right, and this is of course just a metaphor, but it does, you know, help the concepts sink in. Right, so we will go through a few examples so that it becomes more understandable. So one of the principles was the barriers lie in the environment, not in the learner, and this metaphor really helps understand that the focus is on removing the barrier. Okay, so with the UDL, the focus is on removing something that inhibits learning. Now, the variability of learners is a norm and can be designed for.
Gulnaz, I'm really sorry to cut you off, but then I'm very interested in how your exchange in the United States as a FLEX student went on with this type of picture we just saw in the previous slide. I mean, have you witnessed any of the let's say barriers in the United States, and have you witnessed anything that developed after that?
I have to be honest with you, Gulnaz. My experience, I'm a FLEX Alumna of 2002. 2002 is 20 years back, and the UDL in itself is about 20 years old. So it wasn't so much put into practice at the time. There was an attempt, if we look at it from the evolution sort of perspective, the school I went to as a FLEX participant was similar to what Uzbekistan is currently trying to implement as a step towards inclusivity, which was closer to integration, and Dilmurad can help me with this one really, is a step towards integration rather than inclusivity as such. Integration is when a group of students with disabilities is placed within the mainstream school, right? There are all kinds of accommodations and modifications, which is even worse. The key takeaway from the course I'm taking right now is that modifications may not be necessarily good. So modifying means kind of reducing the standard, right? So you oh, this is too difficult for the student because he has a disability. Why don't we modify the standards for him, right? So kind of, you know, reduce the standards for the student. And this was the tendency at the time there, because the students were placed in a separate classroom. They were all together. And this makes it even more difficult, because when you mix in different disabilities, this is multiple special needs placed together, right? And they may be conflicting. You can have the blind person with a person who is a visually impaired person with a person who has a hearing impairment. So they may be conflicting, right? So it's always easier when you kind of spread that out and minimize the need for accommodations and adjustments. But at the time there, what I saw, there was a special classroom, a separate classroom, a class of students who had disabilities, There is, as far as I know, there is an attempt to put in a similar reform in Uzbekistan. So maybe we can, you know, kind of skip the steps in the evolution and progress potentially directly to the genuine inclusivity. And the genuine inclusivity would probably be where the special needs students, the students experiencing special needs, are not segregated. They are fully included with the rest of the students, because if their needs, of course, need to be addressed, and that's a separate. There's a whole a whole separate discussion about what needs to be in place for this to work out, right? Because there has to be legislatively made possible. There has to be a range of trainings and reforms. I actually touch upon that at the end of the presentation, sort of. But yes, today, 20 years later, today, I think United States has stepped a lot further, right? And there is genuine attempts at inclusive schools, and the inclusive schools is where there is no segregation. There is no isolation of students with special needs from the rest of the student cohort. So
thank you, Gulnaz. And Baha Diyarov is also FLEX Alumna in 1996, which means he's older than you and us. Yeah. He is here and he wants to ask a question, probably, right, Baha?
Yes, Gulnaz, thank you for this interesting topic. Just a quick question. Oftentimes we're talking about this disabled students, people, and when we mention integration, we're sort of talking about them being fit for the majority. So we take the disabled people and we want them to sort of integrate with, you know, in quotation marks, normal people that have no disabilities. How is that nowadays? Because from my standpoint, I would think that that people that have no disability should also be accepting and willing to work and socialize.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
not just have them in the class. You know, this is just a remark.
The core of the transformation, the core of the transformation of the social model is to recognize the variability, recognize that everybody is diverse. Everybody, I mean, in my practice, I have seen students who have concealed certain health conditions, certain disabilities, so to speak. To be absolutely honest with you, dyslexia is not even confirmed as a disability in Uzbekistan, but there are students who are dyslexic, right? And you know, the disability is like a claim, right? But variability should be accepted as something absolutely natural. We all vary in our abilities. We all vary. A very basic example. Can I take this example of scissors in my room, right? They are made for the right-handed. We don't qualify the left-handed as the disabled, but let's be honest, the scissors are not very handy for the left-handed people. That's their separate feature, right? The world is built for the normal majority, right? So the thing about universal design and the universal design for learning is to try and adjust the environment to kind of address the needs of everybody, of all the people, right? So that's the point where standardized approach to mass production of scissors or standardized, why not produce both of the type, right? For the left-handed and the right-handed. This is what UDL is suggesting. Why not offer assessment, or why not offer the material present the material so that it would appeal to a range of learners, right? A range of, to everybody basically, right? So when we talk about our traditional education, where we ask all the students, regardless of their needs, whether with disability or not, because there are lots of students without disabilities, but still they have their special needs, right? Individual, you know, kind of strengths and weaknesses. So think about, let me get your views on our educational system. What is it that we teach immediately in the primary school? What our teaching and learning is focused on? What kind of skill do we teach to students in primary education? What lies at the center of our education here? Think about primary education. What is it that, the first thing that we teach to our students? Anybody can help me with this one? Yes, Baha.
In kindergarten or first grade?
I think it starts at preschool around the age of 6, probably. But then, yeah, but then we judge students on that throughout the primary school, one through 4.
From my knowledge, I remember just being disciplined, how to socially act acceptably among your peers. I don't remember being not forced, but to learn to write or read. It was more
exactly. Thank you. Thank you. That's all I need. Reading and writing. Think about it. Basically, this has its roots in our education, in the history of education. Education became possible when mass printing became possible around 15th century, I think it was, when mass printing of books. So education was made equal to the ability to read. Now today, think about, we have these gadgets here that can read for us. Even if you're blind, you can turn on the text-to-speech software and it will do the reading for you. You can speak to your mobile phone and it will type up the material for you. So why is so much focus placed on a skill that is not that necessary anymore? So we are pressurizing, we're killing the desire of the students to learn. Basically, if the student is dyslexic, if reading and writing is a torture for that student, and in the first 4 grades of primary schooling, we are killing that person's desire to, we're making the person climb that, we are making a fish climb that tree. The fish may be great at swimming. Maybe the life and the career of that person will be about swimming. Right? But we're making that fish climb the tree because that's what our standardized education requires. Because it's based on the standards that have fit the education of six centuries before, kind of, yeah? So that kind of make you think, what is the real purpose of education? Is it to prepare people for the careers and after the school, really? And if that is so, what should students, what kind of what kind of focus should be made in education, right? So what should they be really learning? And if there is dyslexia, maybe certain choices. This is the thing about UDL, choice. The choice should be offered about the way the student may be permitted to express his knowledge, what he understands and he would like to convey. Maybe the teacher needs to address the various learning styles, and not learning styles, but needs, student needs in terms of presenting the material. I was going to kind of, this has basically UDL suggests that this has roots in in neuroscience, and it has roots in the 3 networks of the brain, the brain networks of affective domain, the recognition domain, and strategic networks, right? Basically, we vary in our ability to recognize things. Some of us recognize better through reading. Some of us understand better when we read the material. Some of us understand better when we see the video, for example, or see a picture, right? So the recognition networks is one of the areas. The affective network is placed the first. Number 1 is affective network, and this is about motivation of the students to learn. So when my teachers, I have colleagues here in the university, when some teachers complain, we're not here to entertain students. We're not here to entertain students. Why are they complaining that my classes are not engaging? I'm sorry, I have to object to that now. I have clear grounds for objection, because there is this research confirmed evidence that there is strong reasons to engage students. Otherwise, if they're not engaged, it's not going to sink in. If they are not motivated to observe, and motivation, of course, depends on a number of factors that this course has taught me. It depends on, including the degree to which I see this as important to me, as well as the interest, the variance of activities, right? If you do a certain thing over and over again for a number of times, it may get boring, all right? So you disengage. You can kind of filter out everything, all the information. It doesn't get decoded, so it doesn't fall even in the recognition network. You may be seeing, you may be fully abled person, but because you're not engaged, it doesn't sink in, and your focus may be absolutely somewhere else, right? And the strategic networks is telling us to allow students the various ways to express themselves, right? To perform, right? To express their knowledge, and also to guide their own learning. So they may be choosing, how would I like to express myself? What works best for me, to write an essay, or to produce a poster, to deliver an oral presentation? So this sort of choices, which is at the center of UDL, this giving the students the choice, it also regulates them into expert learners, because they reflect, they self-analyze. Okay, this works for me best, and this does not. So I choose to develop in this direction, right? So, and this is the critical thing, because UDL suggests that students, the critical thing is about not to kill the desire for learning, because lifelong learning, we talk about it, is the thing of the future, because you may not learn in school what you will be doing on the job, but you need to be motivated to continue to learn through experience and etc., right? So the three networks are at the core of this theory of UDL. And just to share with you an example of what I tried with my students. I made a small experiment. I was thinking, I always struggled to give students long case studies. Usually case studies are 2-3 pages long. And when you give students a case study in the class, and this is not students with disabilities that we're talking about, this is the regular students we're talking about, hardly anybody reads through the case. So you either need to retell them, very summarized version, but then they miss on the details. So what are we to do? So what I tried to do, given this recognition aspect, and because this was a new thing for them, it also was kind of engaging for them. I turned on this, I copy-pasted the text of the case study into the online, it was Natural Reader something, the text-to-speech website. And this was in this semester. This was while the teaching and learning was happening online. So I copy-pasted. And by the way, right before that, the same case study I read to students myself. And there was because I was speaking, you're probably noticing now I'm also speaking a lot. So kind of if I was to read a case study to you now, you getting kind of used to my tone of voice and everything. It gets you bored as well, right? And you lose focus. So when with the other group, I asked a few questions with my first group, and there was very little evidence of comprehension, really, understanding of the case study. So with the second group, I copy-pasted the whole text into this speech-to-text website, and I had it read out to them. And surprisingly to me, that kind of the comprehension improved. They could answer my questions based on the case study. So they listened through the whole thing, a couple of pages of text, right? So they listened through it. And at the end of the seminar, I asked if that tool really worked for them, what they felt like. Did they find it helpful or not helpful? And 100% of my students, and I mean 100%, I mean 100%, they reflected positively. They said it was helpful. There were 2 students who said neither yes nor no. They're usually the ones who are at work while studying. They're not basically not listening. They turn on just for the sake of attendance record. So they didn't say either yes or no, but the rest of them reflected positively. So I think what the lesson I'm taking from this is that by what that website was doing, it was showing the text so the students could read, and it was highlighting the text so they could follow the highlighted text, but also the audio was playing at the same time, so they could read and listen at the same time. So two recognition senses were working for them. The visual recognition and the audio recognition networks were working for the student, and that was improving the comprehension. So by multiplying the sources of information communication, kind of appealing to various sources, diversifying there, really helps students learn. And now that works for regular students, but it also works for students who may be visually impaired, right, or low on vision, because hearing the text is obviously helpful for them, addresses their need. I thought that was very surprising and impressive for me, honestly. So because I'm new into this area, I really enjoyed that experiment. I had a few slides made here about each of this because they're clear guidelines. They're actually available all on internet in open source about each of these, about basically the guidelines for teachers of how to put this into practice, how to appeal to in terms of effective network recognition network. So the engagement really helps the self-regulation in terms of staying motivated, right? Gulnaz, I want to ask you, do you want me to go through these, or do you want to proceed to the questions? Just let me know.
Sure. You can briefly go through.
Okay. So the engagement network, as you can see, the guidelines are kind of broken down into 3 layers, and the topmost layer is most important. And this the second layer kind of express more practical approach to implementing the higher level guidelines. So most of these, basically, what they suggest is to provide options, and providing options for self-regulations means to provide options for students in terms of self-expression, really, because this enables self-assessment. This enables students' reflection. Am I strong in this? Am I weak in this? This also helps their interest, because you have variants of alternative methods of presentation to you, and alternative choice given to you in terms of expressing your knowledge. So you're making it easier for the learner. You're allowing students to pick what's more convenient to them, but easier does not mean it's not, it doesn't serve the learning goal, right? So as long as the learning objective is served, so why not make it more convenient to the student, right? So because that really is the end result, the topmost goal is to keep the student motivated, right? To keep on the purpose. So the other guideline says to provide multiple means of representation. This basically means that when we present information to the students, we shouldn't really just focus on the printed text, because this was the traditional approach. Just what I look at my daughter now in primary school, mostly what she needs to do is read and then write, right? representation of materials in alternative formats really helps the students' comprehension, right? The different options or in terms of recognition networks are appealed to. This really helps the learning objectives to be served rather than the improvement of teaching and of reading and writing per se, so to speak, right? So this also means in terms of to help the recognition, providing options for language, for mathematical, this is more practical explanation of how to provide options of representation. So options in terms of language, in terms of mathematical expression and symbols. So to ease this is specifically maybe to help the decoding process primarily, right? So and the last one is to provide options for expression. Basically, this is the students' input expression of what they have learned, right? So they may be asked to do a presentation, to do a written piece of work, the role play, the various means which you can engage the students. So depending, and providing options does not mean providing one alternative, because this is the key thing which I think I failed to mention, because the reasonable adjustment strategy recommended to us that we know that there is one student with a special need, right? And then we try and design an individual plan, a differentiated kind of approach to teaching that one student. When we implement universal design for learning, when we offer options to all learners, and then they can self-regulate in terms of choosing what works best for them, we develop them as learners first, as expert meaning kind of self-regulated learners first. But also we might hit the target. So we minimize, that doesn't mean that my question from this course was, does that mean that UDL kind of cancels out the accommodations and adjustment? It is not. So we provide the UDL. So the majority of the variances in the needs will be addressed through the universal design. Now, if there is an extreme case of special needs which cannot be addressed through the universal design techniques, then reasonable adjustments are still possible. That is still possible, right? So things like extra time in the exam for students with dyslexia are still possible, are not an exclusion. But at the same time, you allow the student to the way they would like to, for example, in this particular aspect, to express their knowledge. So I tried to put it into a metaphor here. So I said here that variability is normal, but that's basically repeating. I tried to create an analogy. I borrowed it from somewhere, to be honest. Right, so right now what we are trying to do in our education, for every student, we have a preset curriculum, standardized curriculum for everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4 students, everybody gets the same mix. But we can have the variability of learners. We can have vegetarians, we can have meat lovers, etc., right? So what differentiated learning tried to do is to create a separate menu for the vegetarians, a separate menu for the meat lovers, etc. But what UDL is trying to promote to do is to offer a buffet of certain ingredients, so to speak, and then allow the learner to pick and choose what works for them best, right? This develops the strategic approach to learning in the student. This allows for the student to self-regulate what works for them, right? But of course, it's not easy, because one standardized curriculum is always easy, but offering a choice, maybe it's not challenging. It requires input. It requires motivation for us as a teachers, right? From the start. So we need to design from the start. Before we actually deliver learning, we need to prepare all this menu, right? The variety of menu, right? We need to think of a choice for students. But once that is ready, then it becomes very easy, because the students take the responsibility for learning. They choose what works best for them. I took this from one of the lessons there. I forgot to reference. I can include the reference later. But yeah, the buffet really kind of close to UDL in terms of kind of metaphorical representation. So to conclude there, where can we take it from here? I've tried to think about what needs to be done in Uzbekistan with regards to our strategy in the institution. First of all, this is that starts with this medical model that really is rooted in the minds and practices and structures across, right? So what we can do is really promote inclusivity and acceptance of diversity. Acceptance of diversity as a norm, as a stated fact, is the people with the diversity of people needs to be exposed. It needs to be seen, and it needs to be seen as something that is okay. All right, it's not something to be hidden. It's not something, because I know we've had the webinars, we've had the webinars when students try to hide their special need because they want to go to the mainstream school. They try to hide the fact that they have certain medical condition, where in reality they should be exposing it and they should be assisted, right? So this really requires a mindset change. Of course, the legislation currently also accommodates more for the segregation, for the isolation, or at least there is a change, there is an attempt to change towards integration. So the legislative process, the CRPD has not been adopted in Uzbekistan fully. We haven't ratified. We're among the few countries that have not ratified the CRPD. So so really, for that to happen, for us to introduce legislative change to align with CRPD, we need to commit in terms of reforms. We really need to commit to the topic, and commitment requires not just, it does require the kind of mindset commitment, but also the financial commitment, because obviously a lot of the things that are currently in place, including the architectural things, right, including the constructive roads, we're already seeing some of these in the streets. I'm very pleased to see the roads, the sidewalks being adjusted for universal design. They are actually universal design, because the area of the sidewalk that is built for to address the needs of low vision people, it doesn't hinder the walking of everybody else through the same route. So yeah, financial commitment is also required. Commitment of resources towards assistive technology for the cases when we can't really address it through universal design and individual adjustments are still required. That is still there on the agenda. Of course, the mindset change is not sufficient, and we need to train people. But I think UDL training is a lot easier than trying to teach each individual teacher the differentiated teaching strategy for all the various special needs that may exist. You can have what is rather, I think, is for the teaching staff to know the UDL and be able to offer the diversity, right? The choice in terms of representation and etc. But also for the institutions to offer special education assistants who can help with the cases where universal design is not sufficient, all right? Okay, and the commitment of resources I have actually mentioned. So yes, that's my impression so far. I'm very grateful to the Academic Council and the FLEX community for offering me this opportunity to go through this course. I think it was very, very helpful to me personally in terms of growing my competence in the area. Thank you. If you have any questions.
Yes, this was very interesting and insightful, let's say, offering instructions type of a presentation. And I feel your passion about this topic and about this, let's say, a field of study, which is creating inclusive education and giving access for all, like creating an equity at the workplace and at the study place. So, and I'm very, very thankful to you for providing these tools for us. This was personally a kind of a nakhodka, we say in Russian, like it was such thing that I got to know right now through this presentation that that was prepared by you, and I'm so thankful for this, for the taking time, for allocating so much, let's say, strength and your passion into this. Creating this presentation and passing the learned material to the younger generation. And now let's switch to the question and answer process.
One thing I wanted to mention, Dilnoza, is that the UDL theories, basically it's this book, The Universal Design for Learning. It's available for open access. Anybody who is in teaching practice or would like to develop competency in the area can have access for free to the electronic version of this. I will share the website in a second. All you need to do is register on the website, and it's free, and you can have access. Basically, this was the book, the core textbook for the course that I took, the online course that I took. I was able to get access to the printed material as well, but yeah, I think everybody would benefit from reading a little more about this. There are lots of examples, very interesting examples, practices there are examples of students of people with special needs who had the benefit of being exposed to UDL, and they have made very successful careers. So those are great examples. I think they can be the role models for a lot of the people.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure it will be. And it's really interesting that also this year there was the half marathon, Samarkand half marathon, which was focused on autism awareness. And I was so happy to find out that there were some people who actually supported, and there were some people and a number of people and a community which supported autism awareness. And you know, there are such conversations as like creating some centers for the people, for the kids who have autism, and it's totally normal, and they want to create some inclusive education style in those centers where everyone can bring their kid with the diagnosis, with that type of diagnosis, and help them, let's say, I should say integrate, because it's not that developed yet. Will then integrate into the society with their existing problems, and maybe live with the problems even more, let's say, easier or better. And I'm so happy that some slight and small changes are happening in the community for the creation of inclusive education. So I would be happy to switch to the Q&A. We have a number of questions in the chat box. I will start with the first one, which says from Muhammad Ali Shavkatov, probably. I have a question to Gulnaz Bektemirova. I hope you'll reply. It's obvious that normal people and disabled people, specifically students, have to pass the same exams or barriers, and it is regarded as discrimination towards normal people if disabled guys are treated better than them. How is it treated in the US? Or other countries? For example, in developed countries, are disabled people paid attention or get attention more than anybody else? Thanks in advance.
I wanted to take a look at that question, honestly, because I was a bit puzzled. The question is that the disabled people get preferential treatment?
Yes, yes.
That's the case.
Yes.
There is the practice, indeed, of, well, normally what happened is in Uzbekistan, they definitely do not, for example, get preferential treatment. Everybody is subjected to the same standardized exam, right? And this is discriminating not against those that are, you know, as you call the normal majority, but discriminating against the students with special needs because they have those special needs which are not being addressed. What is the practice everywhere else is that there are reasonable, and that there is this word reasonable. So there is this concept of equity, right? So kind of relevant adjustments that can be made to kind of minimize the impact of their disability on their performance. So I think that's good practice. That is the best practice that we still need to develop, and it has to yet sink in. But I really would love to see that question, honestly.
Yeah, it's just.
What is the timestamp for that one, Dilnoza?
Yeah. Can I read it one more? Or?
6. What is the timestamp? 6:18, 6, or is it directed to you?
It's 7:04.
7:04.
Oh no, okay. Timestamp for that is 6:34.
6:34. Okay. That normal people and disabled people, specifically students, have to pass the same exams and barriers, and it's regarded as discrimination towards the normal people if disabled guys are treated better than them. There has to be, the way to regulate this area. Now I think I understand the question closer. The process of preferential sort of, like you're saying, preferential treatment or reasonable adjustment is regulated. It has to go, there is a very tedious process. I have studied it in the University of Westminster in London. We're trying to implement a similar practice in our university where once the disability is disclosed, which is in itself a very difficult process, it's very difficult to kind of motivate people to disclose their disability. There is a tendency to conceal the disability, but once the disability is disclosed, what happens is there has to be a verification process. So the fact that there is a disability has to be confirmed by a relevant doctor, right? So there has to be a medical representative who has the authority to, and who can confirm the existence of such a disability. And once that is supplied to the disability support, which exists in educational institutions, and we have set up such a unit in this university. We're now in the process of working out the procedures for their operation, the documental kind of written out, confirmed procedures of exactly what I'm trying to convey to you. Is the next step from there is the disability support speaks to the student and tries to work out the ways in which their disability can be mitigated, can be compensated for. That may be extra time. So to work out to what extent the scaffolding needs to be provided, to work out the supports, what kind of supports can be provided to that student, to kind of put them on the same level, not above, but on the same level with the rest of the students. So once that is worked out, the disability support team approves of this, and this is disability support is specialists who have the expertise to make such judgments. They have confirmed the list of accommodations or adjustments that may be offered. That is circulated confidentially. The confidentiality is a big issue. It's circulated confidentially to the relevant services. Accommodations may be circulated to for example, library services. So, for example, a student who is in a wheelchair doesn't have to go and fetch a book independently. The librarian can quickly move around, do that, offer that service for that student. Or if the student is dyslexic and it's really a torture for the student to read the exam paper, it just takes a lot more time to read through the exam paper before he actually has the opportunity to answer it, then extra time is offered. That sort of accommodation goes to for example, the registry who oversee exam organization services. So that information is confidentially circulated to the relevant services, and they offer. But the disability support is responsible to make sure that those supports are exactly what the student's special conditions require, special needs require, so that they are not discriminating against the normal, as you say, but they are what the student needs to be placed on the same level as the rest of the students.
And I think Dilmurad has a question or any remarks. Dilmurad?
Yes, I wanted to add, this is an interesting question and debate about whether there needs to be a preferential treatment for disabled students. Because when they get the preferential treatment, it's regarded that non-disabled students are discriminated against. But I don't agree with this, because there is a preferential treatment now at the national universities. So disabled students with the first and second group of disability, they get like 2% quota from the government, and their tuition fees are sponsored by the government, and they can. The interesting thing is, out of the maximum of 180 points, they can get only 56 something points, like only 1/3 of that grade, and then they can enter the university. So the only thing they need is to show their disability card, first and second group, and get the minimum points, like 1/3 of the maximum point. And many other students were saying why we need to provide, for example, preferential treatment for children of the military personnel, like, or for disabled students, why they get, because they are disabled. But they get the preferential treatment because there is no reasonable accommodation for them. And I thought that the logic behind this preferential treatment is that their educational level was low already at the initial levels of education in the primary, and then that's why they need to get this kind of like privileges during the entrance examination. But it's not a good logic, I think, because we need
That's exactly, yes. I was going to point, Dilmurad, that's not the best practice, right?
Yeah,
so reasonable adjustments would appear more kind of a better approach to addressing.
And there is also another situation when in the university setting, when a disabled student, for example, attends an exam, the examiner says, "Oh, you are disabled. I will give you a mark out of nothing. Just give me your entrance like examination sheet, and I will give you a mark because you are disabled." It's like a charity attitude towards disabled students within the educational institution, which is not tolerable and not acceptable. And reasonable accommodation is not saying that, oh, you are disabled, you need to get this kind of treatment. It's providing the same kind of starting point for
putting on the same level. So
yeah, put on the same level. Yeah, as you said in the picture, we are just making putting a box for them that they stand at equal level with others. So the box is the reasonable accommodation. It's not like we are not trying to like sympathize them and try to kind of be merciful and like kind to them. It's like to be just for everyone. Like it's a justice. Yeah. I just wanted to add that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Great.
Thank you, Dilmurad. And I would like to voice over Dilmurad's questions in the chat box. So a question was, how many disabled students do you have at YIUT? And what services and reasonable accommodation are available for them at WIUT?
The confirmed incidence of disability, we have just one case officially disclosed, and that's a failure because I know there are more. I know personally, it's visible. You can observe it. The thing is that the difference we are facing in higher education here is that students who have gone through the primary and secondary schooling here, they are trained, so to speak, to hide their disability. It's just a feature that, you know, that is shaped through the practices of overcoming, because if students disclose the disability, they, you know, let's look at the admission into primary education. There is a special commission that kind of considers, are you fit to go to the mainstream schooling? That very concept of putting a student through the commission is, through the admission kind of into primary education is questionable. How inclusive is that? And therefore, to be able to go to mainstream schools, students hide their disabilities, right? And therefore, in our university, we do not face a lot of students with disabilities, but we do have a few, and a lot of them are not disclosed. Most of them are not disclosed. There was, I think I read Dilmurad's question about what services are available, what structures are available, how far along are we as an institution in terms of offering. 2 years ago, I was the author of the policy on inclusivity and diversity support at this institution. It was very hard for me to draft the policy because of lacking competence. But that really sparked my interest in the area, and I'm thankful for that experience. And that was the start for the launch of, we had a designate position for the disability support service development, and that has come through the executive board, and we have the disability support confirmed as part of the organizational structure. We haven't yet recruited. We have had a colleague who performed the functions, but not recruited yet, because what we're facing here again is difficulty finding the relevant expertise in the market. We're finding difficult, because what we have is in the market is defectologists. Again, the approach is to kind of segregate, to treat the deficiencies, the bodily deficiencies, the bodily wrongs. This is the primary objective. Whereas in our service, we should work out the service. The primary focus of the service should be, how do we, through the curriculum, through the other services, how do we enable the student to learn and achieve the same learning objectives as everybody else? So the structure has been created. We are in the process of writing out the procedures for the implementation, so that the registry, the LRC, and everybody else get the relevant services, get the relevant information confidentially. This has to be streamlined through the electronic, the student record system, so that confidentiality is protected. So we're in the process. We're progressing through it steadily but firmly. The primary difficulty we're facing is recruitment right now. Yes, recruitment.